Leah.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today on such short notice.
Glad to do so.
Yeah, I know I kind of set you up and I'm looking at this lecture that you sent me and I don't want to bore you too much with like my small town peninsula issues, but I was very inspired by what you accomplished in Flint, and I was told by Andrew McCoy, like, this is your specialty. And I just kind of feel like I have an instinct that there's something not quite right with the water systems where I live, and probably I can't fix it all, but I just feel dissatisfied with the way it's set up and sort of the lackadaisical attitude of the government locally. And I just feel like, there's so much that could be done to make this world a better place. But of course, money's always an issue, blah, blah, blah. And I just didn't know, what were some like steps that anybody could make from a simple point of view to just at least, get some evidence that there are issues with as far as the quality and also even just like the name, what is a good test to use that I can just do on my own, or also just as far as trying to quantify all these issues that I sent to you in the email, like for a housing study. I want to make sure that all the aspects of water for people in their households are not ignored, and I'm sure that this will happen, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing any kind of language that maybe I wouldn't have said otherwise, because it's not like really my area of study. So
Okay, well,
it's kind of a lot, but
yeah, no, it's gratifying to see people are interested in this issue.
mm-hmm.
It's complicated, and I think that the place to start is really that another lecture I gave on kind of infrastructure inequality.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think this is coming about not just because of general decline in morals and ethics, although that's probably part of it,
Mm-hmm.
in scientists and engineers. Right? And why would you expect government to, be trustworthy anyway, I guess. But,
Yeah, why would they?
Misconduct here is most concerning to scientists and engineers. Because you'd think they were trustworthy working for government agencies, and they're not anymore.
Are you talking about the ones like that work for them consistently, or like the ones they contract to do these kind of jobs?
Both. Yeah, it's a whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
And but the one that I found most perplexing is you're a nonprofit, basically. You've got a government civil service job. Why would you lie and make up data and break the law? And so that's the conundrum I've been trying to deal with, because no one anticipated that we have checks and balances on industry, because they have conflicts of interest. But it's just assumed that if you work at the government, you would never lie, because we set up your job so that you can't generally really profit from it. Or we think water is so important that we have environmental policemen overseeing it, whose paycheck's not, directly correlated to pulling a fast one on us. But nonetheless, they cheat over and over again, lying over and over again. So
it just shows the stratification of society too, and I'm starting to think that part of that elite people always talk about the elites. It's a lot of it stems at a lower level of who is running the government, because the government really is supposed to just be people. It's like, I think, everyone has this idea of the government, and it's like this big scary entity, but really it's just a bunch of bozos. They're just like us. They all do the same things we need to do every day to survive, like eat and drink and wash and take a shower. And yet I know somebody who's been in jail for 12 years because they had a little bit of pot on them, and yet people can lie about water quality. I mean, it infuriates me. I feel very passionately about it, and anyway, I don't want to talk. I wanted you to do the talking, but I do feel like it's very frustrating to see that. I think a lot of people feel powerless about like how to actually make their voices heard, or like ask for accountability.
Right. No. So there's let me just get started here. Start going through some of the questions.
I actually watched the YouTube thing. I saw your Senate thing about the EPA, so I feel like you don't have to answer all that, but whatever one seems interesting to you, you don't have to do all of them. But
okay. Well, so let's see. So we have third world problems here in this country, and I think there is shame associated with it, and I think that's one reason why it's allowed to persist, because people are ashamed that they're in that situation, and America is ashamed that folks are in that situation, and so no one really wants to talk about it. So shame is a big deal. Mm-hmm. We have students that want to go all around the world and tell people how screwed up the other countries are, but if it's something in their backyard and people are going to hate on you for pointing it out, they don't want to do that. So, and I know why, because you get in trouble.
Yeah,
so that's the shame issue.
Mm-hmm. Goes against our propaganda, that we're the best.
Yeah, I think that's we have an overly positive self-image, just like all of humankind. That's something we protect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, the EPA does have authority on lead and water, but they cheat and they lie and they break the law. And so,
why would they do that when their role is to protect the environment? Why would they exist? What is their motivation to do that? Laziness?
Well, I think it was an issue where it's a variety of factors. One is they're arrogant pricks. Another is that they kind of got in this mindset that they're the good guys. Mm-hmm. And that the water industry used to be good guys in this country. It's a quasi-public health agency. You think of water utilities, your friendly local water utility. And, I think moral overconfidence is a huge issue. So they used to do a really, really good job. And this types of problems I deal with are new territory for them. They used to take care of the water up to the property line. And lead and leaks and Legionella, which are the biggest issues we face, occur from things happening in people's homes because there's no lead in the water mains. So they sell this water that influences lead, leaks, and Legionella in people's homes. Has billions of dollars of damages, kills people, and causes elevated blood level in children. They never wanted responsibility for that problem. They think they should just sell you the water and then it's your problem. Mm-hmm. But when they passed the lead and copper rule, that made them take responsibility that they never wanted or accepted. And so then they started cheating because it's easier to cheat than to do their job. And an EPA, I think, it's an example of regulatory capture where they just assume these water utilities are good guys like them. And so they're never willing to enforce. It's not like industry, right? Normal industry, where there tends to be a more adversarial oversight role. It's more like, oh, we're in this together, and we all think this law is bullshit. And so, whatever, do whatever you want to do.
I wanted to ask, sorry to interrupt briefly. You said lead and then there was like Legionnaire. What was that word?
Legionnaire's disease, yeah. It comes from bad bacteria that grow in your pipes and your water heater and will kill you in the shower or make you sick or if you're immunocompromised. So thousands of people and this is a brand new sort of issue. We discovered it in 1970 and we only really realized that had hard numbers that it was killing people in their homes about 2008. So unlike lead, there's no laws. We're trying to get laws. We're trying to figure out what to do about this dangerous bacteria, and it's representative of many other bacteria. So, those are the two elements of Flint, are lead, which is the oldest known contaminant, regulated. They broke the law. And then Legionella, which is very, very new, and they had an outbreak, and 12 people died. So the point is, it's contested territory, and
what about
normally good people end up doing bad things because they just don't want the responsibility for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could think of a few people from that hearing, including one who's now newly appointed by the Biden administration to be part of the climate.
Fire, yeah.
It's pretty shocking. And I don't really like to be right or left. It's more like, just decency would be nice. But
or telling the truth would be a good start.
Yeah, just
CDC lied, and then they lied their way out of DC. They gave Congress the finger, and Congress didn't want to do anything because it's the CDC. And Republicans don't care, and Democrats want to protect them, and so they got off and. Then they learned all the wrong lessons. So anyway,
what about pesticides? Sorry, what about pesticides? Because I live in a rural area and I have this feeling like, and people saying their skin is burning. I'm wondering, is that too much chlorine? I wish there was like a panel because I've looked on Amazon for some things, but I don't know how reliable it is, and I'm just wondering, besides lead and Legionnaire, what are other things to look for?
Well, there's a lot to worry about if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But overall, I think it's important to keep in mind that, generally speaking, U.S. water utilities provide relatively safe water at very, very low cost.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of uncertain things like pesticides and, antibiotic resistance and bacteria and all these things. And folks are really sorting those things out. And, there's a debate about what's safe. And if you ultimately decide to regulate, you pick a number, half the people think it's too low and half the people think it's too high. That's how society sets regulations. And so there's a lot of things people are worried about. I wouldn't say needlessly, but there is a lot of needless worry. Mm-hmm. And one of my things that make me most angry about Flint is it undermined trust in drinking water all around the country. So even the 98%, that number I just made up off the top of my head, of utilities that do their job and probably the water safely, still a lot of people are worried that they're next, that they're hiding something.
Yeah.
So that's the danger. But all those things are of concern, but very few things rise to the level of illegal activity or breaking an existing standard like a law. And so I think that's what, differentiates D.C. and Flint and Denmark, South Carolina. It's like you caught them breaking a law and lying about it,
Mm-hmm. Where does this lead come from? Is it from the pipes? Is it just inherent to the process of how they filter?
Yeah, no, it was added purposefully. There's 3 types of lead, so there's a reason for all of it. The worst is the lead pipe itself,
mm-hmm.
which is the best plumbing material known to man, except it kills people and causes lead poisoning. So it lasts forever, and it doesn't break. So back in the day, when you only cared about quantity of water, not quality, you just wanted to bathe and shower, and not have breaking pipes, then, it was great, but it's not, not a modern pipe material. Lead solder was used to connect copper pipes together, glue them together through 86, and lead was added to brass purposefully until 2014 to make it easier to machine very intricate engineering parts. So there are reasons for all these things, but the issue is there's relatively lead-free plumbing today. Nothing is zero lead.
Okay.
But it's going to be a long time before we get the lead out. We have to learn to live with it. And, all the modern plumbing materials are relatively very, very low lead. Orders of magnitude less of a concern than the old materials.
So it's just the kind of something we can't escape, and it's also the best known material to man. What about some sort of metal alloy that was like...
Well, I said except the caveat that
it kills people
and causes elevated blood vibes. Important caveat.
And when you said people are purposefully, adding it, is it because of the infrastructure, or is there you said there's three sources?
For the brass parts, the intricate faucets, for example, they're engineering marvels, right? And to machine those, you could add a little bit of lead to your brass, which is copper and zinc. And it just reduces the cost by, a factor of 5 or so. And so it'll be added up to 1%, 2%, 5% lead by weight purposefully, but that was phased out in 2014.
So, yeah, I guess more exact.
So now brass has more like ambient levels of lead in it, just what's in the natural ore or something like that.
Sorry for sounding like an idiot, but you said copper and zinc. What is that? Is that brass?
Brass is an alloy of copper and zinc, and up to 12% lead by weight could be added.
And what is the in Flint? Sorry, I know I could probably look this up online, but what is the parts per million in the water that's acceptable versus dangerous? What was their?
Well, it's really hard to say, and the health impacts from lead are dramatically exaggerated in Flint, and it varied from house to house. So the vast majority of Flint wasn't exposed to very high levels, but there were a few cases where it got into the tens of thousands of ppb,
which is 10,000 times more than it should be, or
1,000. Well, I mean, what should it be? If you assume you should be below 15, which is the action level, there was, say, 1,000 times higher.
Wow.
But that was the rare exception. Not to minimize what happened, but the elevation in the children's blood lead is not even close to what people believe based on the news reports. So that's another sad part of the story is folks using this to their political advantage to get money, a lot of money.
Oh, for reparations or something like that? Or?
Yeah, reparations, class action lawsuits, lawyers. Use it as a hammer to attack people and exaggerate and try to make it a political problem when it really wasn't.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. It's just, and that's not what science is supposed to be about. It's supposed to just be, look, there's a problem, let's fix it, and that's it, move on.
Yeah, or at least you should give the appearance of being non-political. But that doesn't happen nowadays, unfortunately.
Yeah, especially with social media and everything, it's really easy for stuff to go crazy. But, yeah, I mean, so probably it's everywhere, can't really escape it, but there are certain, I don't know, do you have any like if we lived in a utopian world, would it be that everyone had like a composting house, or that even large cities use that? What would be the real solution if money and politics?
And again, they do a good job of delivering a very high quality product at low cost, and you could get a better quality product if you wanted to pay a lot more for it. But we don't want to pay.
Yeah.
And many towns like Flint can't afford to pay.
What would the real cost of water be if it was really clean? Like I was reading that article about in certain parts of the western states how there's kind of these battles for owning water rights. And
yeah, well, there's the water out there. The water itself has a lot of value because it's so scarce.
Yeah.
And whereas, generally on the East Coast, or we tend to be more water rich, so it becomes more not an issue of quantity, but quality.
Is that because we're getting it from aquifers, or because of the humid climate and the condensate? I don't know exactly.
We have a lot more rain and surface water on the east than some of the arid water scarce. Obviously, if you live in the desert, you know what the problem is, right?
Yeah.
East, there's no real eastern deserts.
That's true. That makes sense. I just didn't know if exactly where, is it because of the exact, is it just the water table, like the below, what's below the ground?
Yeah, no, we're over pumping, particularly in the West, we're over pumping aquifers.
Okay.
And so that's a irreplaceable asset that's just being disappeared.
How do you even find an aquifer? What does it even look like? Is it just like a pocket of water under the soil?
An underground lake, yeah. There's various geological ways of identifying it. Obviously, the simplest is just drill a pipe and hope you hit water. And if it's there, you got water. And if it doesn't, you wasted your time.
It's not like there's like a metal detector for aquifers, is there? Or,
no.
I mean, you couldn't just scan the ground, and you just have to kind of figure it out, and then...
Yeah. Nope, can't do that. There's seismic things, and plus the aquifers are well demarcated now through trial and error over more than a century of drilling holes.
Okay. Because there was a golf course in this town, and people were trying to figure out, how can we make this water plant a zero emissions one? And I was like, what does that even mean to have a zero emissions water plant? And they're basically this nearby golf course in August is using like 1 million gallons of water per day, and the head of the water department in this small town was saying that that's leaching the aquifer, and I'm just wondering, how would you prove that? If that was, and is it really, is it kind of making a mountain of a molehill to even try to prove that? I don't know. Because it is.
Well, that's what it comes down to. So for a lot of the problems you're describing, it's people have worries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to help them address those scientifically. Because if you don't have data,
mm-hmm.
you're just another person with an opinion.
Yep.
So when we get involved, we usually now, because often you're working with activists, and many activists don't want to believe anything except what their cause is.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they can't accept data, if it shows something good, then, you best not even get started. And unfortunately, that's a lot in the world right now. So, we do work with citizen scientists and help them. And 9 times out of 10, you'll find out we can't find anything wrong with your water. That doesn't mean there's not something wrong with it. But given the limited things we can look for in our techniques and funding and budget, we either can find something of concern or we can't. So, that's an issue. And a lot of folks aren't willing to listen to data, and if the data doesn't show what they want, they're going to hate on you and attack you and be mad at you. And if the data does show what they want, of course, you're the greatest hero. But
yeah.
So that's kind of the starting point. Like, what do you have that's legitimate?
Well, see
And
that.
secondly, what box does it fall into? If it's just part of a debate and a policy thing, like, some of these newer forever chemicals or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the DuPont Teflon contaminants.
Oh yeah.
So that's, okay, it's part per trillion. Okay, now, yeah, it's everywhere, Bernier. So now how worried should you be and how much you're willing to pay? And you got a decade of debate ahead of you before anything, is seriously done to regulate. And then we can't afford to address all these things. So then what? What are we going to do? So a lot of these things fall into the box of, that's a policy issue, evolving policy. Legionella is the same. Then you've got aesthetic issues wherein it's like rashes. And if you go to my flintwaterstudy.org website, if you could just read about rashes, and it's very, very complicated. Like 90% of rashes go undiagnosed. And how do you know it's coming from the water? How do you know it's not water exacerbated or water genetic interactions or something? So in Flint, where rashes were high on the list, like, we were able to show that there was a slightly increased incidence during the water crisis, but in the aftermath, when everyone was still complaining and going crazy about it, they didn't have higher incidence of rashes than anywhere else, And so there's some evidence that the rashes were water-related during the crisis, and there's a couple scientific reasons why that might be true, but after that, those reasons were eliminated, people still were crazy about rashes and thought it was coming from the water. And it might be, but it's not coming from the water at a higher rate than anywhere else, So, but that's, that kind of issue is aesthetics are, people see things different, people feel things different, people have their genetics and allergies and, and so that's really a tough nut to crack, but sometimes you can make some progress. We had success on that in Flint and Hawaii cases, and then the only one that really gets any traction is if you're breaking the law.
Oh, you mean to do tests kind of like on your own time sort of thing? Or
yeah, we're traction publicly or people care.
Oh, I see. Oh, where it's like blatant gross abuse of power or something like that.
Yeah, you have to show that people are heard, and preferably, it's got to be the right demographic for it to get news or assistance, and preferably if minority children are involved, that gets a lot of airtime, and I'm glad it does. But if something similar happens in a white, rich community, interestingly, people don't care as much. But either way, the bottom line, to get...
Everyone wants to be politically correct, or just sort of...
Yeah.
Just kind of be like, I don't know. I think it's sincere, but also, we should care. We are all, one humanity, so we should try to, care about it.
It is for everyone, but it's not.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's very interesting, because, the reason I even got involved in this housing study thing is because I'm doing a documentary, and I wouldn't really call myself an activist. I just wanted to make it because I heard that in my community, people were still going to this farm to fill up water jugs because they couldn't afford to have water. And it's
trust.
And a lot of
people getting more risk, but but it's trust. It's psychological.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know, there's two prongs to this documentary. Is one, how can I get people, at first I thought maybe I'd start a private fundraiser and like install wells for people that way, but a lot of people who have the issue don't want to talk about it. And two, then I started to think, when I heard this story from a few friends of mine who were saying that they thought that, they couldn't stand the smell of the water. It smelled disgusting. It was burning their skin, and I was just like, maybe I should have another part to this. I don't want to accuse anyone, because I actually am working with this local people in the government, and I just wanted to find a way to make it kind of like this educational thing that would be just very neutral, I guess, but just present the situation. And I'm just wondering, because I feel like I'm the only one that really, I just would love to know how to just do, get the message across that there's still people here living without water. And also, I don't want to, like you were saying earlier, a lot of activists, they're only happy when they see a problem. I'm not looking for that, but I would love to know how I could just do a simple test, on this person's house who was saying their skin was burning, like you said, because he said the aesthetics, he had rashes. And, is it just correlated to something else, maybe like the lotion he's using or something? I don't know, but it would just be interesting to know. And I'm just wondering, would you just say, like, go on Amazon and get like a simple water testing kit, or is there something you would, I guess I'm like almost asking, what is the real scientific process behind this that would give the best result?
Well, that's the issue. It's, it requires a massive, broad effort. There's no one test, that's for sure. There's not even 100 tests. And then there's no, there's a very low likelihood of success.
Yeah.
I mean, the chances you have really is there's just a massive outbreak. And you just go, okay, this is so statistically anomalous. Because there's a lot of rash problems, okay?
Mm-hmm.
90%, as I said, go undiagnosed. So the first thing you want to know before you get involved is what evidence is there that anything here is happening above norms?
Mm-hmm.
And how strong is that evidence? And you wouldn't even start if you hadn't established that with like some pretty high degree of certainty. Mm-hmm. Because medical professionals can't explain rashes.
Yeah. I guess. I don't know. I mean, I guess the strong evidence would be like believing in what someone says, like, oh, my skin is burning, and no, not because the water is too hot, but because...
Well, that's very important, and it's every individual is a living, breathing experiment, human experiment, and you're unwise to ignore that data, because when they're telling you something, that's data. But the number of points is one. And then and so the issue is that, again, it's a very common problem. So even the first step of tying it to water,
mm-hmm.
like that's probably less than 10-15% of rashes are related to water.
I guess if he said only when I'm in the shower, or only when I wash my hands, that could be a pretty strong...
Yeah, but you're heating your body up, you're putting soap on, and it can tend to exacerbate other things,
Yeah.
That's where you notice it, too. And then, because you've changed the temperature and aggravated it.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of it being a cause rather than an exacerbating factor.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to prove that. I guess, I mean, even doing one test, I'd have to do, like you were saying, like do 100 of them, and even that wouldn't be enough. It would have to be like a real study with it would just be so hard to prove.
It's incredible. But yeah, if there's an outbreak and people band together, like they did in Hawaii, for example, or Flint, I mean, you're like, okay, well, either all these people are crazy, which is perfectly possible.
Well, I could say, even in the town of Cape Charles itself, I mean, how much is it, is it, because you were saying earlier, the townships or municipalities do, like, they have they give a decent product for a low price, so we should be at least somewhat satisfied with it. But there is an entire town who basically they just say we don't really, like, it smells, it looks bad, like it tastes horrible. Like,
but that's very common.
But that's just normal.
Okay. Crappy tasting discolored water.
Mm-hmm.
It's all over the place. Nothing illegal about it.
Okay.
If you want to, get rid of that, you got to pay money. You got to pay money for better pipes and better treatment.
Mm-hmm.
We can get rid of all those problems if we want to, but it costs. It costs a lot of money, and there's no laws. It's everyone has to have water that tastes good and
like from the mountains.
Discovered.
Yeah. So, better. Okay, I have like 3 questions. Better treatment, would that be? Do you have like is there like is there like a model off the top of your head, like a system where it's like, oh, the Hoffmeyer Spring, that treatment is the best one, or is like, is there something you could say that would be like the paragon of treatment that would, even if it costs a lot, like what would it be?
Well, sure. It starts with you want the best source water available to you.
Okay.
Right. So if you got 3 options, pick the cleanest one to start with. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, you can, the regulations are very solid. If you have this, that, or the other thing, you have to treat it in a certain way. And there's a suite of treatments that work. And then people with expertise go in and say, okay, this is kind of the approach we would tailor for this plant. There's many different options to get to the same result.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of do a cost benefit and aesthetic thing. And it's a whole science to, doing this. But
yeah, there's no...
And then you make a proposal and you go with it.
Yeah, so there's no one formulaic thing for each place. It kind of is just...
No.
Yeah.
Every system has to be tailored because of different economics, different contaminants.
Yeah, I guess it could be argued that if there wasn't really a viable source that you shouldn't even build there, but I guess Las Vegas, that
yeah, no, we always do stupid stuff like that. Yeah.
And then for pipes, you're saying lead, like even though lead is bad for us and it kills us, that's really our best option, really? Like
no, yeah, you missed the caveat. I said it was when those pipes were installed, they were the best plumbing material known to humankind, except they killed people.
Yeah.
And poisoned people, right? So the issue was people weren't drinking the water as much back then. They just wanted water in their house 100 years ago for bathing and showering and flushing toilets.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not drinking it, or you're less concerned about whatever contaminants are in it because you can't even measure it, and it's controversial what lead does, then you can get away with installing lead pipes like the Romans did. But we've gone beyond that now. We have laws that say henceforth you shouldn't install lead pipes, but those existing pipes we don't know where they are usually, and it will cost probably $100 billion to just replace the lead pipes.
Jeez.
If we find them. So it's a huge problem.
I'm curious about when all these were installed. I guess like in the early 1900s. It's kind of...
Civil War to usually 1950, except Chicago, who probably continued until 1986.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so, all right, so yeah, I guess it would be probably a problem that may not be solved for like another 100 years or something, or 200. Maybe society by then will have the funds to actually change the whole systems. But,
right, yeah. If you wait until they fail, you're going to wait a long time.
But if it was the perfect one, it would just be, I don't know, could it be that even the whole system itself would be completely different, like in the future, almost... like you wouldn't even need to go underground?
Every material has its drawbacks. Even our modern materials. People are afraid of plastics, leaching in the water. Afraid of copper. Afraid of cement. There's something that everyone can look at a material and go, these are the strengths, these are the weaknesses. Now, which one are you going to use?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean... Sometimes I think about like what is the outside of a car made out of? It's like what is the car material made out of on the outside?
steel, aluminum. There's plastic coatings on the paint.
Yeah, plastic. Yeah, I guess maybe it's just something that doesn't really exist yet. Or glass, well, even. Glass would be good, but that would break. Really.
Yeah, that's the problem. Gold would be great, but it's pretty expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, gold, because that has antibacterial properties too, right? Or something.
Not really. It's pretty non-reactive, but you're not going to get very far plumbing gold.
So this conversation is just kind of reminded me, like, I guess that it's just not one thing that's obviously it's not going to be changed overnight, and that it may not even be in any of our lifetimes, but that there are still things we can do to at least be, not in that territory of gross abuse of power or like ignoring neglect, like in Flint.
One would hope, yeah.
And so I guess probably should we just just do our part individually and make sure that our water is clean with our own systems and kind of expect the worst, and then also
you're probably okay, but the issue is that folks are cutting corners. They're all around the country. Towns and cities are going bankrupt. Flint was ahead of the curve. And so, it's inevitable, I think, that more people are going to get lied to.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting, I heard when you see people fudging reports, how on earth can you what are like some telltale signs of that if you have no reference point of what the truth is?
Yeah. And even if you do, they lie for 10 years. And by the time you prove that they made up the report, no one gets a damn. And they stay on the job and get promoted, and people who call them out get fired.
Well, it's kind of my real fear is sometimes I wonder if it's like makes me sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I always often wonder if we didn't have so much social media and like stuff distracting us all the time, if people would have more energy to get like outraged and do stuff about these, I think it's like such a merry-go-round of what goes on in DC, and that I don't think anyone has the energy to they don't care about keeping track of it. It's like changing so much, and then every now and then you get a pop of it, like when I saw that Gina McCarthy lady was appointed for that position, and then I looked back at what her role was and all of that, and I just think why is she being depicted as like a hero right now? I don't know, it's pretty crazy, and it just and then we have our criminal justice system, which is just basically ruining a lot of innocent people's lives, and it's like such a double coin. It really is unfair. It's so sad,
We're humans, we screw stuff up, but every now and then we get something right too. So
that's true.
We muddle through unless we don't.
And also, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know we're a little bit over, but I just had I guess the last part of what I wanted to ask you about is I didn't know if because I know you're more of you're a scientist, but I didn't know if you had I'm sure you do, like philosophical aspects to, I've been looking at papers of like water as a human right, and like the idea that if there are people, especially where I live, it's like it's a historically like underserved area, and there are a lot of little pockets of poverty that people don't really talk about. And like if someone does not have the resources to sort of have what they need, and maybe they are like, for instance, there's an elderly man in his 70s who doesn't have like heating in his house, doesn't have all these things, and he's kind of abandoned. What are some like philosophical or legal frameworks or people to look up that to kind of talk about water as a human right, or just that we need, where does the burden of responsibility, and then are we becoming communists if we want to help everybody, that kind of thing.
True. Yeah, no, it's the left brain, right brain. It's left right politics. It's well, I mean, it comes down to what do you think? What do you think is fair for society, and is water a human right? And right now, like it or not, you get the water you can afford. That's how we roll. Education, we've decided, is, universal. Certainly everyone gets enough money to educate their children, whether they do it or not, or screw it up. That's, highly local. But plenty of money is provided for education in this country. And healthcare, that's a debate. And water's really not. Water is, you get what you can afford. Now, if you want to change that, then that's fine. And that's a debate people are having with the water is a human right issue, and folks come down on different sides on that. And haven't yet decided, but frankly, I've kind of become a pragmatist, wherein I just feel no matter how we roll, it's wrong to tell people their water's safe when it's not. Mm-hmm. So if you want to tell people you're on your own, fine, do that. Say we're poor, we can't afford to meet the law. That's that. But don't pretend that you're doing something and you're treating the water a certain way when you're not.
Hello? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so basically a pragmatist in the sense of just people need to do their jobs and we are paying for it, so please do a good job, and don't poison us.
Well, and don't break the law.
Yeah.
Why do we have a law? We all agreed. We had the debate. The debate's over. Follow the damn law, will you please?
Mm-hmm.
And, personally, I would like to see water as a human right, but there's a whole long list of things I'd like to see, and we can't afford half of them. So that's why we vote and decide on what the laws are, supposedly. But
yeah, I think maybe people don't realize that there are, we pretty much everyone's heard of Flint, but I think that there's still this misconception that people think that everybody has all of their needs met as far as like, oh, you don't have running water in your house? What? That's crazy. That's like a problem of, another century. And also what really, I don't know. What are some solutions to that? And I guess it would be, like you said, voting for the right people and, I don't know.
Well, it's philosophical, we got to decide.
What is a priority?
The water, we have decided. You get the water you can afford. That's it. If you don't like it, change the law, But, again, where's all this money going to come from?
Well, I just shared on my Facebook the other day this article on the Hill. It was about Virginia has passed this legislation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And something, but it sounds like a really great headline, but then when you read what is an arrears program for people based on their income percentage, and so I just wonder at the end of the day, and also I don't know if it's actually been passed yet, but at least it's kind of out there. But by the time,
very excited about it.
By the time it actually becomes passed, I wonder what are steps for people in different locales, and it's I'm starting to realize that how important it is to just focus on your own local area.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for the average citizen, if you're an expert, then you can do more. But just to sort of, if many people kind of maybe took more interest in just realizing like what was going on around them and participating more, maybe, I don't know. But so basically we are still at a level where water is not a human right, but we're headed there, hopefully, and we can I don't know, just is it too demanding of us to say that water is a human right, or is it just
probably, because unless you want to say it and not live up to it, which we're really good at, it's going to cost a lot of money. And are you going to pay other people's water bills? That's what it comes down to. Are we going to find the resources for folks who can't afford it to get free water and fix their infrastructure? And that's like $1 trillion problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be we could afford it if we just stopped all other activities like defense stuff and military.
But not, you can't, people have a long wish list, right?
Yeah.
All the things they'd like to have, and then there's wants and needs, and we're debating about what our needs are, but the wants are at least 100 times more than what we can afford.
Yeah. Well, maybe it will take, I'm hoping with this documentary and with doing this housing study that the right questions are asked, and finding the right company to hire to even, like you were mentioning earlier, how if there's no data available, that makes it difficult, and that's where you need to start gathering evidence. So it's like we can't really help people. Right now it's just based on hearsay about who does and doesn't have water, but if you can't really truly quantify it and find out where they live and who they are and help them, then it's kind of a difficult process. But I guess this has been very helpful for me to realize that it's kind of like inch by inch in a way, just really a slow process to like understand how to get everyone on the same page. And
Excellent.
Yeah. Anyway, I thank you for your time. I really appreciate this, and I'm sorry if I kind of rambled a little bit, but I feel honored to have spoken with you about this, and just
Well, likewise, and I think the documentaries and informing people about the pluses and minuses and the various points of view, it's the way to go.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of make it like an environmental awareness thing, and social, and get different interviews from people, and sort of make it this thing that maybe some kid in high school could watch for some, I don't know, just learn a little bit more about the environment, and that when you turn on the sink, that it's not just magic, like there's a whole lot of work that goes behind it, and processes and laws. It's just a complex system, and I think it's good for people to just remember that we can't take anything for granted. And we, like you said, everyone has a wish list, but I still am an eternal optimist, and I feel like, even if we never get there, it's still good to at least strive and hope that everybody, is helped. And if they can't, that we should try to set them up for that. If they're mentally ill or, elderly and or can't afford it, or had some hardship, whatever, that at least we could at least try. And the goal of it is to increase the number of households with running water. So here on the shore, I think it's like maybe 200, and that, even if it's such a small thing, that would be really great to find some donations, even privately, who knows, and just help those people. So every bit of information helps put the puzzle together. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, and pleasure talking.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a great day, and thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.